No life forms here.
Wampa!
New Hoth Wampa, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo in Hoth outfits, each sold separately.
I'll look higher.
Wampa! Wampa!
R2-D2, use your sensor scope. I can't find Luke. Hey, you big fur coat. Try me on for size.
Wampa, 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 Wampa!
Thanks, Han. And you too, R2. Oh.
New Hoth Wampa, R2-D2 with sensor scope and other action figures, each sold separately from Kenner's Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back collection.
Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to Geekfest Rants. My name is Carlos Perone, and today we are returning to one of our favorite subjects, Star Wars toys. We are hitting part 4 of our vintage Star Wars toys, specifically Kenner toy line. This time around, we're focusing a little more on the Empire Strikes Back line, and given this is the holidays, especially this show coming out exactly on Christmas, we are talking a little bit about some of the, what we like to refer to as the misfit toys. Some of these Star Wars toys that are not exactly up to par, if you will, with some of the best toys, but it's nonetheless actually vintage items that, you know, not a lot of people have, and they're kind of rare. So let's continue where we left off last time with our co-host James as we unearth some of his collection.
Well, by the time the Empire Strikes Back figure collection began, they had done everything up to Boba Fett in the large size and in the small size. So we knew where we were going, basically. The Empire Strikes Back was coming, and it was just exciting to figure out what was going to be released. They released a batch of figures, a wave of about 10 or 11 figures, and then they released new toys. Now, some of the new toys included things like creatures, vehicles, stuff like that. Some of the ones we have here are, you know, again, the second stringers. Some of them are very exciting, but some of them are less than so. What I have in front of me here is something that, as far as our follow-up with exclusives, one of the exciting things that came out was the Cloud City playset, which included Han Solo in his Empire outfit, the jacket Han Solo, which was, you know, very cool. Dengar, the bounty hunter, an Ugnaught from Cloud City, and Lobot, Lando's sidekick. Now, this was another cardboard special. It basically folded out, and it had what looked like a carbon fusion chamber platform, a background of space, and a torture area. So if you look at this,
It's a lot of stuff for a small box.
It gives you quite a lot of detail in the cardboard package form.
Does it have a plastic bottom, or it's a cardboard bottom too? It's a cardboard bottom. Wow. No wonder that the packaging is small, because it's all confined, you know, folded in. You know, it's a crime they did not make a full-blown plastic carbon chamber. I mean, come on. You could have had Luke fighting Vader, obviously the whole...
They made it in that micro collection nonsense.
Yeah, but it's pretty good art in terms of
what it is.
They try to make it... It's good background stuff. It's just a shame they didn't make it, you know, like we said before, a little more substantial, a little more plastic, a little more sturdy. Because, you know, they took the time to try to incorporate as much of it as possible from the film.
There were 10 in the first wave of Empire Strikes Back figures.
Now, do you even remember commercials for this at all?
These didn't really have commercials because they were Sears exclusives.
Yeah. Now, do you remember the figures? How did they come packaged in here?
They were in Kenner bags. You hear that from time to time when you want original figures. Mm-hmm. Are you buying them packaged in vintage cards, mint in the card type thing, or Kenner bags? These Kenner bags were basically just clear bags with the word Kenner or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you would be expected to open the bag and not suffocate yourself.
It's cool that, you know, even though these were exclusives and they're not of the quality of the plastic stuff, the packaging stuck in terms of they were consistent. At least Kenner was concerned with packaging in that style. So you know it's all part of the same line. There was no variation on it. But I've never seen this in person. I've seen pictures here or there, because I don't think I had a Sears nearby where I lived, and like
in
you
Uruguay?
Said, there were no well, by the time Empire, I was here, but still, I don't remember seeing commercials about exclusives. Obviously, no internet, so I had no clue that these stuff existed back then.
Now, this little booklet I have features the new figures, the Darth Vader case, which was a type of spin-off on the cases that we spoke about previously. This is more like a bust of Darth Vader. You could display it perhaps on your dresser or something if you were a kid, and you could also carry, there's a little handle in the back of his head, you could carry it around. And that would hold every one of the figures that were put out up to that point. This little booklet features some of the original Star Wars playsets in addition to new ones that were coming out for Empire, as well as some of the new vehicles and the new large size figures, which Boba Fett, even though is considered a Star Wars line figure since he was released in 79, he's in the Empire Strikes Back. So I believe he was repackaged in the Empire Strikes Back packaging, as well as his fellow bounty hunter, IG-88, who was, other than Boba, the only released Empire Strikes Back large size figure. They kind of gave up on that line. Sales probably weren't as high, and they realized they could go to the micro line eventually, which was later in 82, that allowed them to have more play environments for both Star Wars and Empire play areas.
At a lower price point, obviously.
Actually, the price was a little higher because they were made out of real metal. The figures were made out of real, they were posed real metal. They also made die-cast line for Empire to follow up with some of the Star Wars line that they had made. And while the very original ones weren't that inspired, the X-Wing's proportions are actually kind of cheesy, the Empire ones and the later Star Wars ones are considered among the best representations of these ships. The Slave One, the Cloud Car, the Snowspeeder, eventually the TIE Bomber, which was very hard to get in any representation of the TIE Bomber. Everybody, all the fans seemed to love the TIE Bomber because they never really made it. I think that's what it is. If it's something that's a little bit different, the fans go gaga over it. Eventually, they made what is called a Hoth, Imperial Attack Base. And it's another one of these sets that really doesn't have very much to it, except it gave you something to do.
Well, it's a more elaborate one than the Sears version.
Well, the Sears version was designed basically to sell you 4 new figures, which we will get to.
I love this. I used to have this. I remember this one. You would assemble these little cave bridges all over the place, and then through a series of, similar to the Cantina, a series of little clicking levers, you would basically recreate something being hit by a blaster. I know the gun that would be here, it would click in the bottom, which was really cool. And the door to this Hoth area would also be placed in a corner where you can then use it to kind of blow it up. And what's interesting is that on the cover, and again, this is something that I always used to fall for, like an idiot, they would show you not only the pictures of the action figures, which, as we all know, figures are sold separate, but they would also show you the Tauntauns, which it's a little tricky. It's a little deceptive if you ask me, because I guess a Tauntaun could be considered a figure, or it could be considered part of a playset. You know, and obviously for a 9-10-year-old kid, you know, I'm hoping it's an actual playset, but it wasn't. So I, not that I bought it thinking it was coming, but it's one of those things where I'm always hoping it would include one or the other. Now here's the sound of the gun. Little click here, just a little bit, but it was really cool because you could mount a snowtrooper right at the edge of the gun.
This was supposed to be a representation, even though it's called the Imperial Attack Base and it shows stormtroopers and snowtroopers, it was really supposed to be the foxholes or the ice foxholes where the rebels were shooting at, because that gun is a representation of the mounted gun that the rebels have.
Well, like I said, I used to have this. This was great. And it's cool because it's kind of like a portable little playset you can put anywhere. And you know, granted, it's Hoth. You know, you can't really pretend you're in the Death Star, but it was cool. It was, you know, for a collection that kind of frowned upon play sets. You know, with Star Wars, you got a huge play set, and then they kind of started going away, the play sets. They got smaller and smaller. This was pretty good. Now, as far as Hoth goes, they really did quite a bit of Hoth-themed toys.
Here we come to one of our first examples of a recycled playset. Again, the cardboard winners, I like to call them. Some people are very impressed with these. Some people are not. Well, what I see here is they decided we need to get some quickies out there. This was called the Hoth Ice Planet playset. And what it was a white version of the Land of the Jawas base that we had discussed from the Star Wars line. But instead of a sandcrawler, it had an AT-AT looking apparatus, and instead of the elevator that goes up to, and the elevator was still there, but in that area was a different kind of piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
It's like a 3-dimensional cardboard AT-AT diorama with a base that had some action spots. A little ice cave, I suppose, a little turning thing. And there was I guess you were supposed to put Luke on that. Either you're supposed to drop troops down to the playset, or Luke could rise onto that to put his bomb. And, you know, I guess as a kid, you have to play along with the whole nonsense. It's a cardboard toy. Now, I venture to guess that thing was about $15. Prices had gone up a little bit. And if I recall correctly, it's a bigger box than Land of the Jawas, so that means it must have cost more. But as you can see, it's kind of lame by today's toy standards. But the best part of this thing was a little cannon. It looks like it's a cannon like on wheels or something with treads. But if you look at the top of it is the same type that was used in the movie by the rebel troops when they were defending their post. And the guy has a little remote control. Sadly, as soon as he shoots it, the AT-AT shoots back and blasts it into pieces. And that was the end of that particular gun. But, you know, these things are represented fairly. They're just not really that great by today's standards. If you brought that home for your kid today, unless there were figures or something exclusive or something about it, most kids would be a little disappointed.
Here's something for the crazy collectors, the crazier than us collectors as far as variants. If you compare the packaging of the Imperial Attack Base and the Hoth Ice Planet set, if you look at the Han Solo, the Hoth Han Solo, the one in the Imperial Attack Base has a brown frilly thing around its...
The brown fur around his hood.
The hood. But the other one has the white frilly thing, which is what most of the action figures and the rest of the packaging for all other toys have. So I wonder if this was another one of these bizarre variant or prototype that they haven't settled on the color yet.
Well, I'm pretty sure, for your edification, the Hoth Ice Planet adventure set that we're talking about with the cardboard setup and the Land of the Jawas came out first. Okay. And the Imperial Attack Base came out later the next year. I don't know exactly what month or anything like that. I'd have to think about it. My memory has failed me over 30 years. But I'm pretty sure that it basically was like that.
You know, and like you said before, it has the same functions. Do you remember? Does it have the threads?
The treads are on it that match the supposed sandcrawler treads.
Right, and then here you could kind of say maybe it's one of the Rebel...
It's too thin.
You know,
it's basically an exact ripoff of the Land of the Jawas.
And the elevator goes in the back. The leg supports the beginning of the back.
Two legs look like they're moving, and the front legs look like they're wide.
This sits on the leg. Right, there we go. And the elevator goes up just like before. I mean, what are you going to do? This is one of those toys that I've seen pictures on the internet or books, but never even caught a glimpse in any stores because, I didn't have it. I didn't have the
I
Sears.
would guess something like that in its condition, which is pretty good, boxed, packaged, everything is intact. You could probably get for 50 to 100, I guess, depending on how much of a hard guy the seller that you come across is. If it's loose without the box, maybe you could get it for under 50. Because it is such a vintage toy, it's desirable, but it's not really one of the finest pieces that they've made, so you could probably pick this up.
Plus, any toy like this, talk about wear and tear. If you were to play with this the way you play with plastic stuff, this would be shredded.
Very impressive for an old toy.
It would be completely shredded because, it's hard to keep. And this one especially because some of the other ones we saw, the background is just one big flat piece. This has multiple folded, boxy type of pieces that, are kind of difficult to keep in one way or the other.
That particular Ice Planet Hoth, like I said, it would be more expensive now. Originally, it was $11.99. And I got it in a place from Linden, New Jersey called Kitty Mart, where I had a cousin who worked. It was a toy store. Toys R Us was basically one of the only toy stores around, Kitty City, and then you could go to JCPenney, Sears, KB Toys was just coming on strong in malls. So I was able to get stuff from like some obscure places because I had some relatives who lived in different areas. This next set is the Rebel Command Center Adventure Set. This, I believe, came out in 1981.
Well, yeah, it looks like a second wave because the figures are, I think, second wave.
It's either for Christmas 81 or for Christmas 82. And if you look at it, it's basically, once again, the same box, except the cardboard background gives the impression that it's the Rebel hangar bay on Hoth. And the figures that are included in it are a brand new Hoth Luke, where the previous release, we used him as Hoth Luke, except he was really just the Rebel Trooper. but he looked close enough. This one was specifically a Luke Skywalker, but in addition was the sensor scope R2-D2 and the AT-AT commander. This one was rare that they only gave you 3 freebies. They tended to stick along the 4 freebies, but, well, we don't want to call them freebies. That costs some money. This I know was a Sears exclusive again, and this one I got, obviously, through the Sears Wish Book.
Yeah, like you said, it has the same features as the other Ice Planet and as the original Jawa playset.
That cave is a very good cave. A lot of hiding.
It's amazing. It's exactly the same plastic. But I guess the bonus that the other one doesn't have, the other one has more elaborate background. This one at least comes with free figures. Can't beat free figures.
Let's not call them free.
But like you said, you're paying
it
for
was easily $9 to $15.
Right. If you figure the other thing cost about $12, figures
that
at
thing was
$2,
probably
$3 a
$12
pop.
to $15 now that I think of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the Bespin playset was we deciphered was around 12 something, and for a piece of plastic and 3 figures. The next gem that I mentioned to you is called the Turret Probot playset. And this thing snuck up on me. I had no idea this was... Usually there's a little picture of things in the little booklets we've been discussing that I loved. This thing snuck up on me. And I wouldn't call it an exclusive of any particular store, but I think I did eventually see it in the Wish Book for 82 maybe. It could have been 81 or 82. It looks like an 81 type vintage. And the funny thing about this is it's one of the best toys they ever made. And I say that with no BS. And here's why.
Yeah.
It starts out looking like just another plastic base that we've been goofing on with the cardboard background. But instead of it being just cardboard, there's an actual turret of the style that the Rebels used on Hoth with a man sitting inside it. And it sits on this plastic base.
And it's an original base. They're not recycling the old piece of crap.
But the best part is that the hatch opens like it's supposed to. Now, I think that
It's
this
somewhat
turret
proportionate.
was... Yeah, I have a feeling this turret was supposed to be bigger as far as the movie. But the top hatch opens, a figure would sit inside it, and it would blast away at the AT-AT, potentially.
Here's what I love the best about this set.
This basically is the unknown figure.
Yeah.
A lot of collectors call this a figure, even though they call it like the original 93 figures, including yak-based types of thing. This Probot is so realistic, the Probot being the Imperial spy that Han Solo and Chewbacca blast while it's trying to infiltrate the base and send back images to the Empire. This thing is very detailed, very proportionate to what, I guess, figure size, and it has a little hover feature that it would sit on this rod underneath, and then a little dial would turn, so when Han Solo blasted it, it would pop, kind of like some of the features we've been chatting about, you know, with the Jawas and stuff, where R2 would pop up or some of the explosions. But I got to tell you, I had no clue, and I don't recall how I found out about this. Either it snuck up on me in the Wish Book, or I saw an ad or something in a magazine, and I ran to wherever I don't remember. I think I got it from Sears. At that point, JCPenney became a player. During Empire, JCPenney must have said, hey, man, we need some treats. It kind of like now, Target, Walmart, Toys R Us, they each have their own style of exclusives. I think that kind of thing happened or started to happen back then where Sears would have these exclusive. They got on board first.
Well,
but then JCPenney said, I want some stuff. And KB might have tried this, but I don't recall for sure. And Toys R Us really wasn't a player with that. They'd have stuff, but Toys R Us was weird back then. I actually worked for Toys R Us in the early 80s. They would get stuff, and they would get most of the stuff, but then there'd be things you'd never find there, and that must have been because what we know now, exclusives.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the best things I like about this set, first of all, I never had this set, but this is one of those things that I always wish I had. And it's nothing outrageously priced compared. It's not like an AT-AT type of, price point. This is somewhat of a normal, probably in the teens, maybe low 20s. But the best thing I like about it, like you said before, is the turret is in proportion. The Probot is something that I think I might have mentioned before in one of our previous shows. It's something I always had a problem with. The problem I have with the Probot is that even when I watch Empire, and now, obviously nowadays I understand it a little better in terms of what I'm dealing with. But the issue that I had with the Probot was always that it never seemed to give me the right proportion of how big it was. I always used to think that the Probot, based on the way Han and Chewie are, one who pops up and the other one shoots at him, I always thought it was a gigantic, robotic transport thing. I've never really understood it as a robot. It's really a robot if you think about it. I thought it was more of some kind of spy transportational device. And I always thought it was much, much larger. I'm talking about like the size of, let's say, an X-Wing or a Y-Wing at least. But when you got this set, it gave you the proper proportions of the Probot, which is something that I didn't have before. And because I didn't own this, I never had it in the back of my mind that, yes, this is the size of a large person. It's probably about as high. Now, again...
And it hovered.
It also hovered.
So it made it seem maybe bigger. Maybe it made it seem 10, 12 feet the way it was hovering.
Right. It looks almost like something out of War of the Worlds. You know, this huge, gigantic legs and a gigantic turret.
And all that stuff
But
on the
it's
top,
not.
All that stuff at the top is realistic in the sense that the stuff we have now, modern type of spying equipment, there's tons of cameras, tons of eyes, and you can see those round areas. Those are all sensors, either eyes or sniffers or scanners of some type. We could have something like that in our army presently. It's like a drone.
Plus, the way that this particular character gets delivered into the story, you got to remember, it comes from a pod, similar to, I guess, the Star Wars pod where the droids escape. And the pod crashes, and out of the crash, this thing kind of crawls out of the pod and goes hovering around. I might be wrong, I hope I'm not, but I could have swore I've seen pictures of Probots in Return of the Jedi in the background
of Endor?
No, of when the Emperor is arriving at the Death Star.
You know
as
what?
Everybody is assembled. They have some black painted Probots, not with the gigantic legs, but you at least see the heads kind of assembling.
It's either that or a similar type of thing that they have on there to monitor the hangar.
With their R2 units or R5, you're all painted black because it's
Imperial.
Imperial.
You saw it in the lineup.
Yeah.
I've
seen pictures of that lineup. I think
like
it's
in the matte painting.
I could have swore it's in one of those early Sansweet action figure books, the Gray Book. Inside, there's a lot of pictures that we had never seen before, and these guys
very interesting,
are
which would
there.
make it for sure a robot more than a
and you see the proportion.
Creature or something.
The proportion is like a small robot, and obviously they don't have all the legs.
Yeah, and these legs could clearly be monitored.
And the legs are probably, remember, their legs are all folded up inside.
Yeah, and they
probably,
move like
they come
like
out.
the War of the Worlds.
Right. So for the purpose of being here, it's kind of like saying, it's like half of this couch, let's say. And it's just sitting here in attention. But yeah, this is another one of these.
Yeah, I was always very impressed with this one. It was one of my favorites. If I would ever say there was an MVP of the Empire line, this has got to be one of the top two in terms of just the things I like about it.
And now here's the turret for you sound fans.
Wow.
It's so lifelike. I can hear the lasers cranking.
I already feel oppressed by its power.
I feel like I have to run. I don't know where. Moving on the kind of like the Hoth theme that seem to be on right now, we have an actual creature. Now, this is one of two versions, I believe, of the original Kenner Tauntauns.
Yeah.
The one I'm holding right now is the ride-along Tauntaun, I guess, if you will, which, similar to the Dewback you mentioned earlier,
Had the secret hatch.
which, similar to the Dewback, it has that little secret hatch with the fake legs, so it looks like he's mounted when, in reality, half the body's hiding inside the Tauntaun, which is ironic since the Tauntaun gets split open to have a person stuck in it.
Later on in this line, they realized, hey, we can make another version of these Tauntauns, and they made what is called the open belly Tauntaun. And the open belly Tauntaun was this Tauntaun, except underneath in his chest and gut area, there is a soft plastic type of gray. It's gray to match his fur, but it is split. And when you squish something in, there are no guts or anything, but when you squish something in like the top, there's the spring-activated opening. The bottom has this plastic gap. It's hard to describe what it looks like, but it's basically like a square with an incision in it.
Yeah, slit.
There's soft plastic which allows you to pass a figure through to make it appear like Luke is being protected by the innards of the Tauntaun, like in that scene.
Now, do you remember, because I don't think they did it with Kenner, but they did it with Hasbro, there's two main Tauntauns, the Luke and the Han. One of them, I think, is supposed to be missing a horn, because I think it's Luke's, I think. Is that? Do you remember?
I don't know.
I remember there was a difference.
Broken horn or missing one?
A broken horn, like it's been cracked.
Oh, well, I'm not
think
that.
it might be
I guess
Luke.
I'm not that good of a fan because I didn't know that.
How dare you? Now, speaking of Tauntauns and creatures, you couldn't own the Tauntaun if you didn't own the Wampa.
Wampa, wampa.
Wampa,
Wampa,
wampa.
wampa, wampa, wampa. Any fan who grew up with the Empire Strikes Back toys knows there was an insipid commercial when the Wampa was released. While the commercials did get better, original commercials had like a very militaristic James Bond or war type theme. This was more like using Star Wars style music, but he would come out and there would be a kid holding the Wampa by his feet yelling Wampa, Wampa, Wampa. And it would knock figures over because he was supposed to be this big snow creature. But the weird thing is, nobody ever saw the whole Wampa back then. You saw his head and his arm. And this was the only way you knew what a Wampa was, because until the special editions, there just never was a life-size or a figure rendition of the Wampa. Now, I call this a figure as well. He's a large size 3 3/4 inch figure, but other people just call him a play set, or, he's not listed on the figure page. But if you do go to some of the Tomart guides or Lee's figure catalog or something like that, they will show him sometimes as a figure, because if you look at him, he's got 4-point articulation. He's a figure, and I love him. I think he's the best. I just love his face. It's sad, if the Wampa gets his arm cut off.
Now, this particular Wampa you own apparently came from JCPenney, and it cost you a whopping $6.99.
See, that's why I think he's more like a figure. He was in the figure price range.
Well, this brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed our look back at some of these toys that are still around there somewhere, if it's hard to find. And don't forget to take a look at some of the commercials. We posted all these links to the actual commercials that are really, kind of take you back to a much simpler time, if you will. And I'd like to thank James for once again hosting us and letting us go through his collection. And we will see you here next time. At some point, we will bring you more of these toys. We have lots and lots more to go through. And until next time, see you soon here at Geekfest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Let's let him do a little solo action for us. Piano solo. Bass solo. Drum solo. Han solo.
Gotta knock out the command post. Come on.
From Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new Imperial attack base that you put together.
Stormtroopers behind that gun.
Chewbacca, new Han Solo, and Imperial Stormtrooper action figures each sold separately. You can press the ice levers to pretend the mine explodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And make the bridge fall.
That was close. Command post in sight. Fire.
Nice job!
Imperial attack base from Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection. Action figures each sold separately. New from Kenner.
We can't talk now anyway because Truckzilla's coming by.
Just the good old boys.
They're not even that good.
Most people find that as a compliment.
Thank you. I'm your most humble servant.